Well, it's that time to fill the chicken feed up again. We get this from our local wholesaler. Looks like we've got a slug found its way in there. I'm starting to think about what we do for the silky hens, because the silky hens don't really get on well in the wet weather in the winter. So I'm coming up with a cunning plan, which I'll show you in probably a future video, but really it's about how we keep them dry when we have some real persistent rain, because even the protection that I've built on the back of the shed for them does seem to allow quite a lot of the wet in. So I've got a bit of a cunning plan, and as I say, I'll share that with you at a later date. In the meantime, it's corn to go in next. And this corn, it's a mixed corn, and it certainly helps them to maintain body heat if you give them a bit of this at the end of the day, which we usually do. Right, on to the gardening things. Well, today I'm going to put this thermometer back up, just a couple of batteries in it, and it's away again. And at the moment it's showing 17 degrees, but I think that's probably because it's been in my pocket. I'm going to zero that and then put it in its usual spot and see how we go. Well, in here at the moment it's showing 18.5, so it is strangely warm. Unseasonably mild weather we're having, but I'm sure that'll change quite rapidly. So in here it's just watering, just keep these onions ticking over, and I'm going to harvest the peppers today because they are quite literally over now, and otherwise not too much to do in here. It's all just about storage really. And the carrots, the soil is dry, but the carrots continue to work their way down looking for moisture, which is perfect, and they're all looking very good. So hopefully we'll have plenty of carrots during the winter months. Well, we're at that point of quite a bit of general maintenance. I'm going to move these strawberries out, which I put over here for convenience more than anything. Get those down the bottom with all the nursery area. It's amazing. Look at the strawberries that have taken root around the edges. I'm going to clear up all this area now, take the weeds out. I'll pull these strawberries. I know it seems a shame, but there's plenty of good plants in there. But to be honest with you, I've got plenty of them down the bottom, and that'll be enough for my needs. So these would be considered to be first year runners, and as I've explained before, first year runners aren't ideal. You really want a second year plant for a good crop. So unless somebody locally wants these, unfortunately they're going to make compost, but we'll allow for a few to go into pots just in case anybody does need them. Okay, I'll get these out of the way and then it's clearing up time. come full circle now, and these seed pods, they've actually dropped their seeds. It's like I'm a bit late, but I am going to just work my way through and find the ones that have got seeds in them so that I secure them for growing on in the polytunnel. And there should be plenty. It pulls out so easily, and they've all dropped. So I really am looking like I'm a bit late, although a good shake in this seems to be revealing quite a lot of seeds, so I think I'm going to be all right. So I'll work my way through both these and the sweet peas up the other end and just rescue enough seed for next year's sweet pea growth. Well, we've never been short of sweet peas, and I'm convinced there's a lot of self-sown sweet peas in there. In fact, I can see some of them on the ground, but just that little bit of podding has produced a whole shitload of new seed for next year, so that'll be excellent, more than ample. And this little collection of sweet peas would have cost quite a bit if you bought them in seed packets, so it really is worth doing some of your own seeding or seed saving. So we'll get those into a paper bag or something that they can keep in, and we'll look forward to new plants next year. Good times. Well, you would have seen me earlier on in my videos taking away the rhubarb leaves. They're a lovely colour, they look beautiful, but a little bit more cold weather and some rain and these become extremely slimy and will be a bit of a trip hazard. So I think most of the goodness that's going to go back into the plant has gone. So I'm going to strip out these and throw them away. And it gives me an opportunity to get down and weed at the base of these plants, which, because of the size of the leaves during the growing season, I really wasn't able to get under them very easily. That just cleans that up too. And they're looking pretty good. I can already see sort of areas where there'll be growth next year. And some people do cover up their growing area, but I've always left it completely open, and that doesn't seem to have caused any problems, particularly with these varieties. They seem to be very hardy indeed. Right, that's those, and the others are got a bit of a way to go yet. There's a few yellow leaves which I'll take off, and they really are slimy, but I'll wait for the others to die down a bit before I go any further. Well, it's already starting to look a bit bare in places, and of course the more you do it this time of year, the more that's the case. I had a bit of a chuckle because Mrs. K came over and said, "What have you done with the paths? Where's all the wood chip gone?" And of course, over the course of the last few months, the wood chip has just decomposed to a point where it's almost soil or compost already. And the next time I put chicken compost on top of this, or bedding, then we'll get that sort of path look again. But I'm not going to do that until probably in the spring, when I'm happy that it won't blow around and it can stay reasonably on the surface for the planting season. So that's what's happened there. So whilst I was clearing up that rhubarb, I remembered a little tip that I got, which came from Danny. You'll probably remember him. He was a guest on the channel a few weeks back. You can go back and see that video. He's a great guy and he's got lots of knowledge. And he said to me there's a synergy between fruit trees, apple trees in particular, and garlic. And he's grown a number of his garlic underneath his trees. Now the theory is that the roots of the garlic are very shallow and they have some beneficial properties for keeping pests and disease away from the fruit trees. Now, I don't know, so many of these things get passed down from gardener to gardener. They've usually got some validity, and if Danny's experienced good things, then I think that's probably good enough for me. And I'm going to grow some garlic therefore in these beds. And of course, that's a great advantage to me because of the white rot that I was getting in some of the other beds. So there's a few calendula left in here, but we've had plenty of calendula and we use them for making the balms, and probably there'll be some self-seeding going on here, but that's fine. I'm going to just weed this bed quickly. I've done a bit of weeding in it before now, and no doubt I'll have to continue to do a bit more, particularly because garlic and the allium family, as you know, don't like weeds, so we need to keep on top of it. But given that there's no known white rot in this bed and there's some beneficial properties, I think it makes perfect sense for me to put some in. And I've got a couple of full garlic cloves left, some of which are going in the polytunnel, but I'm going to put one in here. So I'll just carry on and prepare this bed, and then I'll bring you back when I'm ready to put the garlic in. Okay, very little time to weed that, and this soil, I've not really dug it over many times since I put it in originally, and that means that the surface weeds, whilst I break up the surface, they do come up slightly, but the number of them is getting less and less every time I dig it. Right, so this is Kingsland White, and you probably saw me purchasing this in my video that I went to the nursery, and we'll see how many bulbs we've got in here. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not so many, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's probably the least cloves I've had in any one bulb, but hey, I'm sure they'll work. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There we go. Now I'm going to just make a hole for those. Use my trowel and get them in, blunt end down, and in they go. And this will get very cold over the coming months because it's a bit higher than the rest of the plot, but the garlic won't mind that because they need that cold period. And hopefully that synergy between the tree and the garlic will come to fruition, and also hopefully I won't have any white rot in here, and that'll be good news too. So the first sort of panic moment when I realized that a lot of my garlic was being affected, I was beginning to think I didn't have any places to put it in. But the more you think it through, and thanks to a lot of suggestions from people who watch the channel, I came up with a number of plans, including the polytunnel, which I've still got to do. So that's that one in, and finally that one. So garlic under the apple tree, and this is one of the apple trees that has not only survived, it's really flourished. And I think probably it's the case that some of the varieties that I bought are obviously a lot more pest resistant and hardy than others, but I've been left with, what, 4 bushes, and hopefully they'll be nice and strong. They've also got a plum and a cherry in here, so I think I'll be looking at replacement apple trees next season, or at least during the bare root season, and get them in. I don't think that's too long. I think I remember buying these previously and having them delivered in November, so I'll start looking out for replacement apple trees for those spots where I've had to take them out. Well, continuing the seed saving theme, I just wanted to check today whether we've got any really strongly developing pods that I could start to dry, and they're invariably the ones at the bottom, and there are a few here. I think I'm still a bit early. I've been amazed how late these beans have continued. I guess it's because we haven't had weather that's too demanding, but let's just open one of these up and see what we got. There we are. So that's the Czar seed, and that's a mighty fine seed that is certainly ready for keeping and drying. And we also are taking some of these now and adding them straight to stews. Whilst the pod is rough and really too stringy to eat, the seeds are fresh and succulent. Now, I know my glove's dirty, but that really is nutty and flavoursome, and goes straight into a stew. Fantastic. So this is the bean, as far as I'm concerned, it just keeps on giving. So I am going to pick a few and put them in my rack and see if we can start the drying process. Right, there we are, and there's some cracking beans in here. Absolutely fantastic, really long, and you can feel the seeds inside them, and that's exactly what you want, because that means it's a fairly big seed. And this one started to go a bit limp, and you can see the seeds forming inside. And I'm going to use my drying rack, which is my multi-purpose basket, previously and recently used to weigh pumpkins. Now becomes the next drying rack for the runner beans. And there'll probably be enough for me here, but there's so many on the plant that if I need more, I'll just take them when I collapse the plant. And I'm thinking that I'm going to leave the support up this year because it's well and truly in the ground, and of course no dig allows you to plant the same crop in the same place one year after another, so why wouldn't I make good use of that feature of no dig gardening? Right, they're going there, and we'll watch those over the next few days, turn them a few times just to make sure they don't go mouldy. Good times. I've been absolutely staggered how quickly this piece of ground is being taken over by weeds. So now's the time just to get this cleaned out, and then hopefully very little else will grow during the cold winter months. As I was doing this and taking the eggs out of the coop, I noticed that Mr. and Mrs. Mole are back with a vengeance. This is great soil. Won't be wasting this, it can go somewhere useful. But yeah, they're certainly in and around the plot again now. Won't take long before we've got molehills in quite a few places. It's a constant supply of nice fresh soil. Well, that's pretty much it. That's the bed cleaned up. Really only took about 10 minutes. It's always worse than it actually is when you look at it, and with a little bit of effort it soon comes around. Okay, that should keep them clear for a while. Well, we're in October now, the beginning of October, but I just want to keep an eye on these Charlotte potatoes because these are the ones that we like to eat for Christmas. So I'm going to take another pot full, and this, if we have a look at a couple of them, you can see that they're not blemished in any way, unlike the Desiree, and therefore I can keep the soil and regenerate it. And I'm going to put it into my first bin, and we'll see if we can start to pile that one up. Well, there we are, and that's probably a couple of meals for us. Now, if you're a big potato eater, there probably isn't enough out of these pots, and you would probably want to grow it in the ground or maybe grow a different variety, but it's just perfect for us. And these Charlotte potatoes, they always amaze me how they last all the way through the season, and when we take those out in a couple of months time, they'll look just like that, and they'll be great on the plate for Christmas. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, click the bell to get notifications of my uploads on Wednesdays and Sundays at 8 PM. And why not like and subscribe? And I'll see you next time. Good times.